Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss sustainable productivity and habit formation while avoiding the allure of hustle culture.
Every episode we interview guests who have got a solid habit and productivity game.
We're your hosts, Joey.
Hi.
And Jeremy.
He's Jeremy.
Joey's a published author.
I'm self-published though.
Has a background in psychology.
Not registered though.
Has a deep interest in humans.
Only some of humans.
And a strong interest in habits and connections specifically.
That's true. And Jeremy is a software developer with ADHD, and when he's not trying to come up with ways to stop himself burning rice, he enjoys doing a 3-hour morning routine and surprising colleagues by doing sets of push-ups during meetings to keep the energy high.
The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by FocusBear, a habit and productivity app that makes healthy habits and deep work the path of least resistance. If you have a tendency to check emails or scroll through Instagram first thing in the morning, but long to develop a meditation and exercise habit first thing, FocusBear can help you. The app blocks distractions on all your devices and guides you through your habits one at a time. Throughout the day, FocusBear assists you to stay in deep work by blocking websites and apps that are unrelated to your chosen focus mode. Life's not all about work though. You'll be prompted to take regular breaks to rest your eyes and stretch your muscles. At the end of the day, FocusBear helps you switch off. Work-related apps get hidden so you can unwind and sleep well. Check out the app by going to focusbear.io. In our fourth episode of the Focus and Chill podcast, we're lucky to have Shruti Rustagi with us today. Shruti is a CFO for Amazon Canada's consumables business, an executive coach with a focus on productivity, and a mentor with 16 plus years of corporate experience across 3 countries, India, the UAE, and the US, in both regional and global roles in Amazon, ABG, and KPMG. During her corporate career, she built successful teams, strategized on billion-dollar investments, and was instrumental in launching Aditya Birla BizLabs, an accelerator and venture fund for one of India's biggest diversified conglomerates. We're very lucky to have Shruti today. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here, Jeremy and Joey.
Excellent. So we'd like to hear a bit more about what you do in your various roles, because I know that you have a role with Amazon, but you also have your own business as well. Could you tell us what you get up to when you're working on in your concentrated hours?
For sure. I think I would divide those concentrated hours into kind of 3 buckets. I know you talked about Amazon and you talked about my coaching, but I also consider the part that I spend with my family as concentrated hours. So the first one would be Amazon. And I think in my focused work in Amazon, there are a multitude of things. Typically, it's about some investment analysis, some deep focus studying, writing a document, which is going to go for leadership, which needs undivided attention. So I don't want distractions at that point. Building frameworks for decision making, which are sometimes applied at a country or a worldwide level, depending on whichever my role is or what I'm working on. So usually when I'm working on my CFO side of things, the financial duties, it's investment and focused analysis that needs focused attention. As far as my executive coaching part goes, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. And as you can expect, in a one-on-one coaching, that entire time, my entire focus and attention is on the person who I'm coaching. And that requires not just the complete attention, but also listening at the second and third level. So I want to listen in for things they're not speaking, for their body language, for everything. So there is a lot of focus that goes in there. When again, I would close my door, tell everybody none of my kids are allowed to come inside when I'm in that session, etc. And then comes the pieces where I want to spend time with my family. And that just, I think, deserves just as much of focus and attention. When I'm reading books to my kids or spending time with them outside, we're going to the park. Now I don't anymore. They're kind of grown, 11 and 6. So they don't need me around. But if you're spending time together, I like it free of distractions again.
Yeah, that's great. I like how you're talking about having the full concentration, not just for work, but also with your children and with your family. And that really makes a big difference in terms of productivity, I imagine, both at work and in terms of deepening relationships, having complete presence with them. Joey, do you want to ask the second question?
Yeah. Also, I just thought it's really refreshing, Shruti, that you intentionally provide focus time to your family, and it's I imagine though it's not like you're setting a Pomodoro timer or something and saying I'm going to focus on my family for like an hour and then I'll wrap it up in like 20 minutes or something. Like, do you have any, I guess, rituals or anything to get you in the zone? I just assumed. Sorry, I shouldn't assume that people use Pomodoro timers all the time for focused work and things. But like, do you have any rituals that get you in the zone to be with your family, and are they different to the rituals you might use to get you in the zone for work?
Well, no. On Pomodoro, yes, I totally agree that that's a very effective technique.
Oh, okay.
But yes, Joey, I don't use it for my family. So yeah, in terms of getting into the zone, I think for family and for coaching, I usually don't need much. As far as my work goes, I do a bit of planning. That's my getting into the zone, because there's so many things coming from so many different directions that I like my day to be planned. On coaching, I already know when are my sessions. So it's kind of, I'm already in the mental zone when I have to get into those sessions. As far as family is concerned, we already have set times because kids go to school. When they come back, we kind of have almost a set pattern that we follow. And mentally, I think my mind automatically shifts to that zone. The one thing that I would just want to call out here, and I know sometimes we don't think about productivity in the way of mindfulness, but I would like to say, just like with family or like with coaching, if your listeners were to think about meetings in a similar manner, that would be very interesting, because meetings are also places you're interacting with people, be it from your office, be it external folks, and complete mindful presence in a meeting can make a lot of difference in asking the right questions, getting the right information, and reaching the right conclusions. So if there's a takeaway from the discussion that we are having on coaching and family, I think people can apply that to the meetings and the interactions they have in their workplace and otherwise.
Yeah, that's like the idea of being present and giving the person in front of you the full focus is I think such an underrated skill. And I think because it's so underrated, it only requires a little bit to really set you apart from all the other people that are answering messages and stuff while there's a person in front of them, right? There was that thing of like I think I can't remember where I heard it, but someone was saying like how important it is to be present and to be mindful at face-to-face meetings, and then like the person that I talked to goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, what? I was distracted." Yeah. That was quite meta. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess I'm also quite curious to understand. You're talking about your work and your coaching and your family, and so do you have like do you have actually any off time? Because some people say like their off time is spending time with their family, but you treat that as a very intentional, like focused activity. Do you have any time where you can just let your mind wander and just chillax?
Yes, I think, when I was thinking about this question, I was also thinking, yeah, most of my time is almost planned, even workouts, meditation. So like that's also a place in my calendar. But yes, I do have time, which is not planned. And the activities I like to do then is catch up on some old reading, or solving some jigsaw puzzles, two of my favorite activities. Apart from that, I think just pick a new recipe, experiment with an old one, tidy up things around the house, talk to friends, call back some folks back home, or just do anything we didn't think of or we didn't plan. So me and my spouse, if we are together and we have that time alone, we just go on walks, we just talk to each other. So yeah, a lot of things which you can do if you have that luxury of that unplanned time. The one thing which I have quite recently taken on to, and that's because US library systems are brilliant. They have audiobooks, etc. Just recently I was waiting in my the dentist's office and he was running a bit late. And I was just finishing off an audiobook. So I loved it that I didn't have to carry necessarily the books or the puzzles or anything. And I could really be productive that time as well while listening to something not necessarily related to work, just fun. So those things I think help. Technology definitely helps.
Yeah, audiobooks. I love audiobooks so much, and I have a lot of friends that just can't get into them because they go, oh, I just zone out or I get distracted. The thing is, you can always just like slow the speed down, or you can rewind. And I feel like people that don't want to get on board with audiobooks are missing out a lot. But I think it's all a matter of personal preference as well.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I can't really blame them. When I think back at myself, I could never get on with Kindle. I just love touching the book so much. But now I think, but now I can manage audiobooks. So yeah, it's just personal preferences.
Yeah, there's definitely some books that lend themselves well to print. Like I was listening to this audiobook called How to Measure Anything, which is it can be quite dense in some of the stats and measurements that they talk about. And so I find myself listening to it on half speed and like rewinding like certain sections. And yeah, that part can be frustrating. But yeah, I think it's really cool. It's really cool to try. I definitely recommend if you haven't tried it already, anyone listening, please give it a go.
Well, they're listening to something audio right now if they're listening to this. I'm keen to dig into when you were talking about how you schedule your workouts and your meditation. What time of day do you tend to do that? Is that part of your morning routine, or when do you fit in those habits that you have?
Yeah, Jeremy, absolutely. Those are part of my morning routine. I'm a totally morning person, an early riser since almost the very beginning. Usually my mornings start like around 4:30 or 5, depending on what time did I sleep, but typically it's within that time. The good part is, and that's something that has kind of evolved, I don't put alarms anymore. It's been almost 3 years now. I don't use alarms and I let my body clock actually just let me wake up. That also ensures that I'm getting those 6 hours of sleep that I need to be productive. And then once you get into the habit of waking up at a certain time, your body kind of gets used to it. That's what my experiment tells me. After waking up, I think the very first thing I do, and not that I recommend everybody else to do it, but I just plan, because I think in my head, I'm such a big planner that I can't go without it. And so I look at my schedule for the day. I look at the schedule for the week as well, because that helps me prioritize the things that I need to do today, which are due in some time. It gives me enough time to plan for buffers and reviews. So that's the very first thing which I do. And then I spend that 1.5 hour into just focus thinking, sometimes writing, or, working on specific projects, anything that again requires time, which is non-distracted, and that early morning creativity. So that's what I use it for. And then of course there are chores. I'm super into healthy eating, so I make sure my kids eat homemade food. So there's breakfast, there's lunch, I do all of that, and then work out, meditate, and then my morning schedule effectively begins by around 8:39 when I start with the meetings and office work and everything else. But yeah, this is pretty much how it looks literally every day.
Yeah, impressive to get that much done before 8:39. You mentioned that you get 6 hours sleep, and you said that that's sufficient for you. Has that been something that you've never needed more than 6 hours, or you've trained yourself to be able to deal with that amount of sleep?
Actually, I've experimented a lot with different amounts of sleep. So I think when I was in school, I would sleep for about 7 hours. B school, it became between 6 and 7. And then since my kids, I had kids, Since then, I've noticed, I don't know if it's to do with the body changes, I don't know what it is. But since then, I have experimented that 6 hours is just the optimal sleep for me. And then I also tried a few different things. So I tried Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra apparently is a way to give yourself a lot of concentrated sleep effects in a much smaller time. I tried that. I did it for probably a few days, but then I realized my body still needs 6 hours of sleep, and so I stopped experimenting on that front. But yeah, it's probably a good area to think about.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you pack a lot in with both your work responsibilities, the family, and doing meditation and workouts. What type of meditation do you do? Is that related to breathing related meditation when you're talking about Yoga Nidra?
Oh, yeah, no, Yoga Nidra was just one experiment I did, but my meditation is pretty simple. There's an app called Insight Timer. I just use that. I use 15 minutes on that timer. And for those 15 minutes, I just practice as much of thoughtlessness as I can. And basically what I'm trying to do in that is I'm just listening to the music. So inside Timer, you can choose the music and you can choose the bells that you want, the ending and the starting. So I usually pick Zen guitar. That's my favorite music to just listen to and meditate. And then all I do is focus on that music. Not thinking anything, any thoughts that come through, I just don't think about them. I let them pass like a cloud. And that is all that I practice. What that helps me do is sometimes, actually often, right after I get up from my meditation, I think about things that have been kind of haunting me is not the right word, but I've been thinking about. They're playing on my mind. And then I think about them usually in a different way or a new way. And I have found that meditation kind of puts me in that spot of new or creative zones, if you will. So it helps me just unpack things in a much better way. And again, I know there's a lot of science that already proves what I'm saying, but this is what my experience has been. And that's all that I do. So it's just 15 minutes every day, but trying to completely go thoughtless during that time.
Yeah, always good to back up the science with some anecdotes as well. And how about for your workout? What type of exercise do you do?
I have 2 modes. One, either I bike. So Seattle lends itself to beautiful biking areas. So either I bike for 45 minutes, and if I don't have 45 minutes, then I do a 30-minute aerobic workout wrapped up with like 5 minutes of some yoga asanas that I do for just general flexibility. So I think I have just, this thing on my watch. I need to burn so many calories a day, and I need to work out for so much time. And I just make sure to finish those 2. Either in the morning if I can all at once, or I finish it off, whatever I can in the morning, and then I do a brisk run, walk, jog, something later. But yeah, I just have that thing, so I know how much I need to do. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Actually, like specific to your working hours, like you mentioned before, I guess the main tools that you were using is your calendar, making sure everything is blocked in like beforehand, so you can bring your like best focused self to that meeting or that task that you're doing, and it seems like a very powerful intention to focus. Are there any other tactics that you would like to share with the audience about how you can fight distractions during your work hours? Because I guess like when you look at any kind of team productivity or collaboration software like a I don't know, like a Slack or a Teams, you get pinged and you get notifications and you get @mentions like every couple of hours. How do you fight those distraction monsters?
Absolutely true. And being at Amazon, we have both Slack and our own internal thing, which we call Chime. So just imagine getting pinged on both and then through emails as well. Yeah. I think one, if you're blocking out some time for focus work, just switch off all the notifications. That's what I do. If you're not able to control the distractions, put your phone in another room. That's literally something I've told some of my mentees that, listen, I know it's not easy for people to execute that willpower. So just make it impossible for you and difficult for you to go and reach out. If you've listened to Atomic Habits or if you've read Atomic Habits, you'll realize that's something that James Clear talks about as well. That set up mechanisms that make it easier for you to do what you want to do and make it difficult for you to do what you don't want to. So stopping notifications is one very effective technique. Second, set status. If you can, just put yourself out of office, not available. I have even gone to the extent of putting an out of office message in my emails that says, I'm doing some concentrated work for the next 4 hours. Unless Earth is falling apart, please don't bother or expect a delay. I have gone to those extents to let people know that if you're mailing me and if Amazon is not dying, it's okay, it can wait. So those kind of things. I think you have to be intentional about some of it, not letting other people know that you want to do something like this may not be always good because there may be certain urgent things that need your attention. So communicating is always a good idea, as well as notifications. The other thing which I think is important, which people often don't do, is prioritization. When there are so many things coming at you, you need to have a very clear way to prioritize things. Push back. Ask them, whoever's pinging you, why do you need this? Why am I needed to do this? Why is this urgent? Why does it need to be done now? And this is specifically for your listeners, especially if they are in their early years of the career. They find it really difficult to push back. So my directs often tell me it's easy for you to push back, but it's not so easy for me when people coming, asking for things. And I'm like, no, it's just as easy. Just do it once or twice, and then you'll also figure out a smart way to do it. Asking questions is one of the best ways to push back. Asking them, why is it needed? Why do they think it's urgent? Sometimes that'll also help clarity to the person who's asking you for the request. So I think there are, as I put it, there are like kind of these 3 parts to it. One is, of course, as much as you can, stop the distractions, as well as communicate to others that you're not available at this time. The second thing is ask pointed questions. Why? Who needs to do it? When does this need to be done? And, how exactly do you want it done so that you can also determine how much time is it going to take kind of things. And then the third thing is just pushing back on things which you don't think are important. And that holds true for everything. And that you can only do when you know what and how to prioritize.
Yeah, that
Does
makes
it
a lot
answer your question?
Yeah. I just want to make sure I understand because it sounds like there's some really actionable advice in there. So the first step is really to set up your environment in such a way that you don't have to make choices about what's going to distract you and what's not. That's like put your phone in another room, turn off all of your notifications, set expectations with people that might be emailing you. And just as a side, when did email turn into synchronous communication? Like once upon a time, email was just like a letter, right? And now it's turned into like some kind of instant messaging platform. And it just does my head in sometimes. So that's the first step. Basically, set up your environment in such a way to make focused work easy and make distraction difficult. And then the second one is for your stakeholders, you ask pointed questions, which helps you establish the priorities. So like, when does this need to be done? Does it need to be done by someone specifically? And like, what are the dependencies and so on? So that basically helps you set up your priority. And then the third thing is, which comes from the second point, when you know what your priorities are, you are more comfortable in pushing back because you know what you can say, what you have to say yes to, and what you have to say no to. Does that sound like a correct summarization?
Absolutely, Joy. And I love it that you said, when did email turn into a synchronous communication? Because I always tell people, your SLA of replying to an email is not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Stop giving others that sense. I totally agree.
Yeah, so much. And I think I'm probably on an extreme end. It's probably not good to be on the extremes, but I know I might take a day or two to reply to messages if it doesn't require if someone's just asking me how's it going, I might take a day or two to respond because I want to give them an actual response. I won't just say it good. But if it's something that requires hey, where are we catching up tonight? I'll give a response soon. But yeah, it's just funny. I often hear people saying, "Oh, sorry for the late reply." It's just it only took you a couple of hours to reply. I mean, it's not like you said, it's not like Amazon or your life's going to fall apart because you didn't reply how you're going in a couple of minutes, right?
Exactly.
I'd be keen to ask one other question about the prioritization. In terms of, Joey was talking about how in order to be able to push back, you need to know what your priorities are. And you've got your tool where you look at your schedule, just not just for the day, but for the week ahead. How do you, as part of that time, do you have a framework that you use? I think you mentioned that you have decision-making frameworks that you use, and that probably feeds into prioritization. Are there any that you could explain in a short time for our listeners?
Sure, Jeremy. One clarification, the decision-making frameworks that I was talking about were more from financial decision-making that we use at work. So when I'm developing something like that for a country or worldwide. But coming back to the question that you asked, on prioritization, I believe I don't have a set framework. But if I were to talk about one or just create one based on my metrics of decision making, it would look something like this. My very first priority always is, if you, in fact, some of your listeners might be familiar with the Eisenhower matrix of prioritization. That's very useful for task prioritization, not goal prioritization. And we'll shortly come to that. For any tasks, your everyday things, anything, you basically are drawing a 2x2 on the axis of urgency and importance. Anything that's urgent and important, and the and important is super critical for you to consider. Anything that's urgent and important is my number one priority. Anything which is urgent but not important is my number 3 priority. Anything which is important but not urgent is what I will start calendarizing in my Outlook. And anything which is neither urgent nor important, it doesn't even feature on my to-do list. By now, I've become that much aware. But I think for people who are starting out, once you start doing this on purpose, you will be able to kind of sift through those things. Now, many people get baffled when I say something that's urgent but not important is a number 3 priority. And it's simply number 3 because I often realize that whatever's urgent, sometimes I'm not even needed to do that. I can actually delegate to other people, or what is looking urgent today may not actually be urgent at all. If I question them, if I discuss with them, it may not even remain a task to be done. And so that's why it's my number 3 from that perspective. Important things for me are exactly why I look a week ahead, and on weekends probably the month ahead, because I know there are things that are going to hit me in the end of the month. Like we have always month-end reviews, we have monthly business reviews, the quarterly reviews. I know those are going to hit me at a certain point. That's important. I know I don't have to work on them today, but if I don't schedule it in my calendar, that is the work that'll suffer. And I don't want it to be in a situation that it enters the urgent and important bucket that I need to, oh my God, tomorrow is my MBR and today I have to work on it. I don't want to be in that situation ever. So that's how I would think about task prioritization. Now, many a times it's difficult for people to gauge what is urgent and what is important and what is not important. Urgency actually is something more easier, because if somebody is standing over your head asking you to get things done, it automatically becomes urgent. Importance is what people are not able to figure out. And that's where goal prioritization comes into the picture. I would say ask yourself 3 questions. What's in it for me? What's in it for the organization? And what's in it for the people associated with me? Anything to do with my family, my community becomes automatically important. Anything to do with my organization becomes important. My own profession, my own life, of course, is important. And then the pecking order keeps changing depending on what's important at that point in time. Do I ever have to choose my interest above my organization's? Almost never, because if I have to do that, I better go ahead and speak to my manager about it. Right? So you should never be in that situation where you have to do that. Do I have to choose my personal interest over my family? Again, you shouldn't be in that situation ever. So I think if you ask those simple questions, why is it needed to get done? Again, I love quoting books, I'm sorry. Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Brilliant book, if just in general for life. And I think for productivity, for effectiveness, there's no better question than why this needs to be done and why me.
Yeah, really, I like that a lot. I also sometimes struggle with, when I do the Eisenhower matrix, figuring out how important is this? And those are some excellent questions to help categorize them into the right quadrant. Just wanted to clarify again, you were saying originally Eisenhower matrix is good for task prioritization, but not for goal prioritization. In terms of doing goal prioritization, would that be a similar process of thinking about what is most important for me personally, for my family, for the company? Is that how you would do it?
It's slightly nuanced. That is typically how I would think of. But the nuance here, Jeremy, is the goal has to somehow align with my future. Purpose is a very big word, but with my future goal. Like if I am prioritizing my job, let's just say, what am I looking at 2 years down the line? Why should I do this? And am I doing enough for it to be worthwhile over the next 2 years? Am I adding enough value? I know you didn't ask this question per se, but this is something I'd like to actually share with your readers. There are sometimes you will be in the zone where you will be going through the motions. I have to do this every single day or every single week, and I do it and I get done with it. I'll be just ticking my to-do list. And no matter how productive it may seem to you, think about it and step back really how productive it is. And that's where goal prioritization comes in. If your goal is to deliver excellent value in the role that you're in, just by doing the work the way it's just needed to be done, like the basic, are you really delivering value? What more could you do to truly add value, to truly add yourness into it? And I think productivity, therefore, it's not just about the work done divided by time. There is an element of quality which we often miss. And that's very key. And that's the nuance in goal prioritization, which is to do with, is your goal just finishing off and heading home, or is your goal making a difference to whatever you're doing? And then you can prioritize what you want to.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. So you're suggesting task prioritization, it's about efficiency, but it's not really considering effectiveness. And maybe there are tasks that aren't even on the list at all that could get you there 10 times faster.
Probably.
I love it. You just mentioned getting home. That was the question Joy was encouraging me to ask. How do you wind down in the evenings?
After a full day, it's not too difficult. But we just have two very simple rituals that we have as a family. One of them is us as a family. We do something we call thank you notes. And we keep changing the way we do it. So we started off by doing it on Post-it notes because my kids loved colorful Post-it notes in a jar, and we would fill up the jar for the whole month, and then the first day of the next month we would open and read it. But then my daughter was like, no, we are wasting too much paper. So now we just share our thank you thoughts with each other. So all of us would just share what we are thankful for the day that day, and any one thing. And you can't repeat that same thing for the whole week. It's just so that kids just don't keep saying, oh, I love that I played with my friends today. So that's all. So that's one thing which we do as a family. The other thing which I try to do, and I'll be honest, I'm not so perfect on it, but I try to do it at least twice a week, is journaling. As much as possible, I would write down things that have touched me in some way or happened or I want to think about or anything that's going on in my mind. I try to, but I'm not successful at doing it every day. But I think doing it every day would be even better. So those two would be my rituals.
Cool. And you also do, if you didn't do the planned workout in the morning, you might do exercise in the evening as well. Is that, in terms of how you structure that evening, is that part of your commute back home, or when would you do the thank yous and the journaling and the exercise after work?
I don't commute. That's the good part. We're still working from home and I'm very happy doing that.
Nice.
Our thank you notes are usually just at kids' bedtime. So, something like 8:30 to 9 p.m. Between that time is when we would do the thank you notes. My journaling would follow right after that if I do it, or else I just directly fall asleep after that. The evening workout is typically just before dinner. So it would be any time between like 6:30 or 7, something like that. If possible, I'll just take that half an hour or 20-30 minutes, whatever I need to get done for that day's exercise. I just go and finish that off. But that would be how I'll structure it.
Nice. Sounds like a really good way to unwind.
And I really like the emphasis on gratitude as well. I think it's such a powerful practice to have, and the fact that you're doing it every day and sharing it with your family, it's so beautiful. So yeah, I think that's an excellent habit that I think a lot of people could probably cultivate more of. I was also thinking, Shruti, you're mentioning Simon Sinek as well, and Start With Why. I haven't read that, but I know Simon Sinek. He wrote a book on infinite games, I think, the finite infinite games, which was really good. And I hope I'm getting that right. I know John Cass wrote it, and I think Simon Sinek wrote a follow-up. But I was also curious about any like other resources or books, philosophies, or apps that you'd like to share with our audience that specifically relate to habit formation.
Habit formation, I think 2 books that straight away come to mind. The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg, brilliant book. I just loved it. How nicely, scientifically he goes through the whole thing, and still it's written in such a layman language. And Atomic Habits, definitely James Clear, I think he's made it so easy for people to actually do and build those habits. Like he's literally broken it down into Atomic Habits. So those 2 I think are great. Other books on productivity, I think 7 Habits is a timeless book. It holds true no matter the situation. And I think 7 Habits is where I had got the Eisenhower Matrix from long time ago. The other book that I can think of is not exactly on productivity. It's called Deep Work. I think it's by
That's right,
Cal Newport, if I remember correctly. Again, a really nice book. And it's good to listen to that because often a lot of people are in that zone of checking their phones, doing something else. The multitasking, I don't think really helps. And he's brought it out in a very nice way. So I think people this day and age really need to read that. And I think there's David Allen's book on productivity. I'm forgetting what the name is exactly. Getting Things Done. Yeah. I think some of those books are pretty good. If people want to get to know about techniques and things. On the technique, Pomodoro works brilliantly. If you really are not able to get yourself concentrated, then those 25-minute blocks can really help you overcome distraction. So +1 to that any day.
Yeah. Those are some really great authors that you mentioned. Like James Clear is a recurring spiritual guest on this podcast, mentioned a lot. And Charles Duhigg, I think, is a very underrated author. Also wrote a book called, I think, Stronger, Faster, Better, which I think came after The Power of Habit, which was my first intro to him. And The Power of Habit, I think there's a lot of overlap between Power of Habit and Atomic Habits, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think James Clear was very good in like basically saying, start very small, start unspectacular, and build a very boring foundation on which you can build exciting things. I think that was the main thing. Thank you for those recommendations. I think those are really, really good ones. So it's probably time for us to wrap up now, Shruti. So it's been a pleasure having you on. Before we wrap up, do you have any parting words or asks of our audience?
Not much. I would just want to actually share with you all some takeaways, I guess. So the 3 things I would love for you all to remember is 1, plan and prioritize, super critical for productivity. Push back whenever needed. If you need your own time, don't hesitate in pushing back, no matter who the person is on the other side, what their designation may be. And the last thing is ask pointed questions. Get clarity. Always better, always good to know what you're heading into, what is expected out of you. Those would be probably the 4 P's for productivity.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And we'll wrap the show with that.
Great. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.